This presentation does cover a broad spectrum of things, so it is going to cover a lot of your fueling, recovery, hydration and some of the key nutrients that you need in your diet. So this is basically the aim of it: identify things that you do and do not know and hopefully take away something new, even if it's just one little thing that you can change in terms of your behaviour or advise your athlete. We're going to focus on macros and their roles, macros being your carbs, your proteins and your fats. The key roles, obviously we're here for performance, so the main things to focus on is fueling around your training and what recovery you put in afterwards relative to body mass and who you are as a person, because if you're a 60 kilo athlete, it's going to need different demands to a 110 kilo athlete, and it's important that you start to identify what you really need. I'm monitoring nutritional intake, and I've just put that at the end. I've suggested at the end that if you want to go away and start recording your food, you can do it in MyFitnessPal app, which you can download onto your phone. So it's just a really nice way to start logging your food and actually seeing how much protein you're having, at what points throughout the day, how much carb you're having, how much sugar's in your diet, and it just gives you that feedback on the go, if you like. So just in terms of the quiz, some of the questions are quite, well, they're all easy if you know the answer. Some questions are quite simple, some get you thinking a little bit outside the box, and we'll answer the questions as I go through the presentation. So just first ones to begin with is nice and simple: name 6 carbohydrate foods. But obviously this list isn't exhaustive, there's more carbohydrates out there, so if you've got something that's not on, shout it out. If there's anything that surprises you, chocolate is on there, it's a carbohydrate. Legumes are kind of like pulses, like kidney beans and those kind of things. Is there anything on there that surprises anybody? Chocolate. Anything other than chocolate surprises somebody that they didn't expect to see on there? Fruit. Fruit comes up a lot, in fact it comes up every time. Fruit is a carbohydrate, however there is like a spectrum of carbohydrates within there if you like, so a lot of your tropical fruits such as your bananas, your pineapples, your mangoes, you get quite a lot of energy in them. In that respect they're really good for fueling your energy as a nice little top up before your session or even during a session, hence tennis players always eating bananas. On the other end of the spectrum you get your berries such as your strawberries, your raspberries, your blueberries, you don't actually get much sugar in them, which is why Special K or strawberries especially generally get advertised as a healthy kind of weight loss option, because it's full of antioxidants, it's really good for your general health and recovery, but they don't have much sugars in. So there is a spectrum on sort of fruits, and again that's just about you educating yourselves as coaches and athletes in terms of what you can have and why, because there's no point in taking strawberries to training because it's not going to give you any energy, but your bananas and mangoes are a great option for you to take to the track to use to fuel those sessions. Reducing injury risk is one role of carbohydrate on performance. Can you name 2 others? So carbohydrates can help reduce injury risk. What other 2 things can they do for performance whilst you're training, whilst you're competing? What are their roles? So carbohydrates, what do they do? So one thing that they do is they do prevent injury. Obviously, it's your primary fuel source, would be the main one. Did anyone else get anything else from what role carbohydrates can do to enhance performance? Spot on. It's your primary energy source, isn't it? Is that what you're going to say? Keeps you going for longer, and that kind of depends on what carbs you have, which we'll come to later. But yeah, if your timing's right, if the type of carbs you put in is right, it's going to keep you performing for longer. So it's going to sustain the quality of the session, the intensity of the session. Obviously, once blood goes into the body, it goes to turns into blood glucose. That then goes to the brain. The brain actually is the most demanding organ that we have. It requires 20 to 25% of what you eat in every day, so it's so demanding. So if you're not fueling yourself properly, your brain's going to get compromised, so your cognitive function will get compromised, decision making, that's going to impact your skill execution, and any kind of decision hand-eye coordination that you may need. So if you're doing a technical session and you've not fueled properly, that is going to become compromised, and that, as an athlete, that's frustrating. As a coach, that's also frustrating because you want that session to go well. Injury prevention we've already discussed. If you pull a piece of string hard enough, it's going to snap. You can push yourself through the sessions, the quality may be compromised and you'll get away with it for so long. If you continue to get it wrong, the body eventually is going to break down. I've left immunity on there. The jury is a little bit out with immunity at the minute, and that's from clinical trials in places such as young girls with anorexia and boys with anorexia, and that's because they generally see that they don't suffer from any coughs and colds, even when their low energy availability is really, really low. So the body seems to want to preserve immunity as long as it possibly can. But we've left it on there anyway for now because there's a lot of research going into it. But in terms of that, I would still encourage you to keep your carbohydrates in just to prevent any risk of getting ill along the way. Okay guys, true or false? A ripe banana provides energy faster than an unripe banana. And what did you go for, true or false? True. Yes, a ripe banana does release energy faster than an unripe banana. Obviously it gets more sugars in riper fruits than unripe fruits. So yeah, just be aware of that when you're picking your bananas and you want the energy quick or if you want it slower. Name 2 foods or drinks, or one of each, that you could have during a training session that will boost your energy. Jelly babies is a classic. Rice Krispie squares. I mean, they do work. They do give energy quick. So obviously you've got two types of carbohydrates. You've got your fast release and your slow release. The fast will provide energy much quicker than the slower release. The slower release tend to be high in fibre, which is obviously good for controlling the blood sugar, and it's also really important for gut health. I've just listed a few on there. Again, it's not an endless list. When I'm working with athletes, I try and make sure that as a priority during training, day in, day out, if we are fueling during a session, I really encourage them to go food first and pick good food options, such as your bananas, even fruit juices, which are a bit slower, just to make sure they're getting the nutrients and the nutrient benefits. Does Haribo give you energy? Yes, it does. Will it do the job? Yes, it will. But it is empty calories and it doesn't contribute towards health. Same with the sports drinks. Sports drinks are the best form of energy in terms of getting it quick. So if you're struggling and you needed energy yesterday, will they do the job? Yes, 100%. I try and encourage sports drinks to be saved for like competition plans and just practiced in training from time to time, just for the sake of getting better nutrients in the body, and then just using anything else as kind of more of a contingency plan. But I've yet to meet an athlete yet who doesn't take Haribo to the track for competition, whether it's athletics, judo, diving, or whatever sport I'm working with. They'll always take the Haribo with them because it does do the job, and I think it's more of a comfort to them than anything else. So there's just an example of some slow release ones on there as well. Generally, as a rule with fueling, I'm like, if you can close the gap 4 hours, so don't let it go any longer than 4 hours without eating anything, you can't go that far wrong. The biggest thing I see with athletes is going to university and then going straight to the track and having a long session and just not fueling beforehand or not thinking to put anything during. It's pretty much the classic one that I'll see. So if your athletes are coming in, whether it's from school or straight from college and they're looking tired, ask them, have you eaten before you come to this session? If the answer is no, I haven't got time, encourage them to put something in their bag so they can either have something on the bus on the way or have it during. I know you've always got the grey areas in the middle where people are like, is it fast release, is it slow release? The reality of the situation is that if you're mixing it with any kind of protein or fat, it's going to be slow release because it's going to slow it down. So only if you're having a ripe banana on its own or a sports drink on its own is it going to be quick release. As soon as you combine it with protein or fats, it's going to slow it down anyway. Give 2 reasons why 2 totally different athletes may have different energy needs. I did kind of allude to it at the beginning of the presentation, one of them. Sprints and endurance, yeah, 2 totally different events, pretty obvious. Age, yep, age is on there. If actually older athletes actually need not necessarily carbohydrates, but definitely need higher protein needs. Younger athletes may be burning more as they're running around at school and all the PE lessons and then come and train in the afternoon. Anything else? Muscle mass, yeah, and you can do it to lean. I haven't done it to lean mass today, but if I've got a judo player who's like 135 kg. I make sure his needs are we're fueling the muscle and the lean mass, and we're not fueling the fat mass. I definitely make sure that happens. So some of the answers that I've got, I put gender on there. Generally, it is body mass. It's not so much energy needs, but certain nutrients females may need more of. Obviously, iron's one of them than males. Body mass, as we pointed out too, we will bring it back to relative to what a person weighs. I put education and exams on there because the amount of times you come across athletes who've got that exam period and they're sitting there with a bottle of, Relentless or Monster or something like that, and they're up throughout the night. It's just things to kind of take into consideration that I think people overlook, and that's when a lot of the bad choices in sugar may come in just to keep them sane through that exam period. And I think we do overlook it quite a lot, and I think a lot of people comment on people's athletes changing physique and they're wondering what they've done. Why have they changed their diet? Have they done this? It's like, no, they just graduated and now they're a full-time athlete and they can commit. It makes a massive difference. Event, we've already touched on, run, jump, throw. Training phase makes a huge difference. Winter training, you can drink calories sometimes, depending on what event you are. You can drink calories all day long in winter training and it not impact your body comp because you're just burning 24/7. When you get competition season, your training's tapered, your diet should be tapering with it. It normally happens quite naturally as you're just not as hungry as an athlete, talking from my own experiences. But again, just being a little bit more thoughtful in terms of winter training's hard, my recovery is going to be high protein, it's going to be high carbohydrate. Competition season's tapered, I'm going to keep it high protein and reduce the carbs a little bit just to support body composition as I go through. So again, just thinking out the box about things like that. And age, as we've already said, different age, different energy demands. So I've kind of tried to give some examples into what this may look like. So general carbohydrate fueling relative to a person's body mass. So this is Joe Bloggs getting up, going to work. They don't actually need a massive amount of fueling, but I also see this in a lot of jumpers as well, so I'd probably attempt to put jumpers within that category because I don't think the ones that I've worked with, if I get past 4, then they've got a really high intake. But if you take somebody's body mass, what have I done there, 7, 21. So this is for a 70 kilo athlete. So if you take the 70, times it by 3, you get 210. Take it, times it by 5, you get 350 grams of carbohydrate. For power and field sports, 5 to 8 is generally where you're going to be looking. The upper end is going to be within winter training. Yeah, the lower end is going to be where you're tapered. And then endurance guys can have an obscene amount of energy. And just to give an example of what 50 grams of carbs look like at the bottom, 3 slices of bread, a bagel, rice, a large potato, and a typical pasta serving is about 50 grams of carbs. If you look at the Tour de France, they actually managed to record somebody having 18 grams per kilogram body weight of carbs, which is the highest that's probably ever been recorded. And possibly achievable to actually get in your body and then how efficiently your body can absorb it and utilise it as fuel. But it was some of the highest recorders of intake that's ever been taken on board. And again, just as a bit more of a crude example, if you like, if you've got 8 to 5 kilo jumper and a 60 kilo 10k runner, these are their carbohydrate demands, 6 and 10 respectively. When you times 8 divided by 6, you get 510, times the body mass by 10 on the runner, you get 600. And again, obviously no one's going to eat that all day, but just to give you an idea of actually how much food that can actually be in a day. It's actually not that much difference between them, and that's because when you're looking at body mass, they seem to be eating so much more to fuel the muscle, as you've just pretty much said. Sleep is the best form of recovery, regardless. If your body's sleeping, it's regenerating, it's repairing. Yes, the building blocks you put in with that, it will repair better. If you put on some casein, some protein before they go to bed, the muscle turnover will continue overnight. But the reality situation is that sleep is one of the best things you can do, closely followed by nutrition. It won't sleep itself will not impact your carbohydrate needs. What we'll do is just physical rest. So for example, those are your training demands on training days, if you like. On a rest day, you might find that you don't need or you shouldn't really be eating as much because you are physically resting. So for example, if you're training twice on a day, it's absolutely imperative that you recover from that session and fuel for the next. Within 8 hours, you have to nail that fuel in recovery in order to be ready for that next session. If you've got 24 hours recovery and you just follow a normal carbohydrate diet and you're resting, the fact that you're not burning through the calories because you're sat on your bum will allow you to restock and replenish those stores just by eating normally a more balanced diet. So no, sleep itself won't really impact how much carbs you need to eat, but what you're physically doing on a day-to-day basis, whether you're resting and therefore able to replenish or burning and need to keep restocking, those are the kind of things that will impact it. So on to general fueling guidelines. And again, these are very generic, so take it and apply it to different scenarios of what is going to happen to you. 3 to 4 hours beforehand, you should be having a nice balanced meal. I've put LGI carbs in there. And again, if you go for a balanced carb, proteins and fats, it's going to be nice and slow release. And there's a few examples there on the board at the bottom that you just may want to pick. So that should be stocking up your energy stores and your blood glucose levels. 60 minutes before, the advice is to have another high GI snack. So obviously 2 to 3 hours before your blood glucose levels are going up and then they're going to be coming down. So it's kind of saying, look, you're going to go out for a training session for a couple of hours. Make sure you top it back up again just before you go. The guidelines are set based around digestion, so you should be able to digest the food and then go on to compete. However, and this is the final one, so during exercise, so if you're exercising continuously for 45 minutes, then you should be having something else during that session. Or, in my opinion, again, if it's a stop-start sport, which we are, if you're going for 2.5 hours on technical, you might just want to think of getting something in anyway. These are generic guidelines. They don't always fit how you want them to fit. So when I'm working with an athlete, I'll either do a dietary recall or even a food diary is brilliant because I get to see from a bird's eye view of what on earth is going on in their life. And it might be that you have a meal 3 to 4 hours before, you haven't got time to stock up before, or you just don't feel you want to, you might have a particular running session, and then you have something during or afterwards or between sessions. You might find that you are happy just to have something before and then not have anything during the session because you don't need it. So it is about you judging what your lifestyle is and how the timings work for you, but it's also about judging what you're doing in training. How hard is that session? I knew the fact that I could eat before S&C because it wasn't going to make me feel ill, but I wouldn't want to eat before a running session because obviously that makes you feel quite grotty and you might see it again. So it's about what your sessions are, how hard you're training, how the session makes you feel. I couldn't do that for anybody. The only thing I can do with an athlete is have that discussion and then plan it for them. So use your heads, learn from what you do. And if you do have something and it doesn't work and it makes you feel a bit ill, The gut is the most trainable and adaptable thing in your body, so don't write it off. Go back, try something new. On Sunday morning sessions, I started off with just a cereal bar, a Nutrigain cereal bar. I knew I could get it down, and then I knew I could do that running session. And then it was toast, I knew I could get toast down. And then I was able to get cereal and porridge in, so I just trained it up, because originally when you started with cereal, it ended horribly wrong. And you did see it again. So, you know, if you are uncertain about it, but you know you need to put something in, practice it, try it, change it, come back to it and build it up, because the gut is adaptable. And the only reason why that Tour de France guy managed to get on 18 grams per kilogram body weight of carbs is because he trained his body and his gut up to do it and to be able to absorb all the nutrients that he needed to be. So it is just about trial and error. It's massively just about practice. But if you get it right, the difference it makes to your training is phenomenal. So nutrition is individual, and it should be tailored to body mass, training load, event and your personal circumstances. The more you learn about foods, your carbs, your proteins, your fats and how much they are, the more you can go anywhere in the world on any training camp to any competition and make informed choices and have confidence in what you're doing.